Just explode when you need to? Well, don't mind if I do. Complain about food. Why is it that food makes you fat? What if food could just make you, No, that all kind of makes sense. That's fine. Beard makes you fat? You mean bread makes you fat? You know what else is a weird subject, Bidoof? Literally anything, if you think about it long enough, was that we change it so we can eat, but we don't have to. Damn. Why does food make you fat? It should just make you poop more and nothing else. Yeah. Well, you don't actually lose a lot of weight from pooping. It's kind of a misconception. You lose the majority of your weight through exhalation and some amount through peeing. Oh my god, T-Zone. Thank you so much for those gifted subs. 223 subs out of 10. I really have to fucking update that. Are we just gonna get here's my brother Luigi over and over and over again? Here's my brother, here's my brother, here's my brother.
Hello, Mario.
Preely, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Oh my god. Very much appreciate that. Holy shit. I can't possibly tell you how much I appreciate you guys. It's tough because I really like kind of rack my brain on ways to like incentivize support on this channel. And I feel like I use all of my effort on doing that for TRG Coliseum once a year. And then I'm like totally out. I'm like, I don't know how the fuck to do this for anything else. Guys, your father is suffering. Not of anything like impending, just suffering in the ways that we're all suffering. Please help. Food being like kind of just like one of those dopamine buttons, one of those things that's easy to get addicted to because it's just, I think there's a lot of stigma with like, oh, you're just eating because you're bored. And that's true, like for a lot of people, but it's clear that in our development, we have some wiring that's supposed to be like, food is good, and it's reinforced with like a neuron firing thing, a feel-good hit, dopamine. You know, at a certain point, like once you have enough foresight to know that if you don't eat, you die, you don't really need that reinforcement. And all it really kind of does is just, I mean, I feel like it just creates another thing that you can very easily get addicted to. Serotonin or something. I guess serotonin, no. It's more like being well fed can be like a serotonic thing. Because remember, serotonin is more of your ability to be able to regulate your emotions and stuff. It's like a difference between like issues with your dopamine or issues with your serotonin. Dopamine is kind of more of like a instant gratifying kind of, that's the arena of the dopamine, where serotonin is kind of more of a long term and also kind of just like a mood stabilization. So when you have like SSRIs and stuff, they're supposed to kind of help with your serotonin reuptake. And that's kind of to be over a long period of time. But you notice that a lot of people have been like pushing forward like dopamine detox and stuff and saying it's kind of become like this fad thing over the past few years. And that I think is closer to what people should be looking at. It's tough because like the way that people talk about dopamine detox is wrong. You can't just dopamine detox for 2 days and be good. You have to dopamine detox for like weeks. You don't have to do it as strong as a lot of people say. You don't have to like deprive yourself of like reading books. People say like you have to dopamine detox and literally do nothing all fucking day. Don't eat anything that tastes good. Gut serotonin, brain dopamine. Yeah, I guess you can say that. I think it sucks because like a lot of people struggle with food in the same way that they might struggle with like sex or addiction to masturbation or whatever, where those are two things that I see very similar in like, it's something that's important for our survival and, you know, reproduction, that it's reinforced with kind of like a brain chemical thing, right? And at a certain point with enough kind of metacognition and being able to understand that like, hold on, it's in our best interest for the future to be eating food or having sex, I guess. At a certain point, you don't really need that. To make sure that humans do it, you don't need that dopamine hit. And I think all it does is it causes a lot of issues. But whatever, what do I know? Just playing Bomberman. And to retrain behavior takes several weeks. That's why I think it's probably more successful to do a dopamine detox for like at least a week or two. Because also, I think at the same time, you're also kind of tapping into those, like, you're breaking those habits and stuff. Like, you can't really break habits in a few days. You have to really, like, I mean, a lot of people would say for, like, a month. Like, force yourself to do something for a month, and then it'll be a habit. Unplug from, like, your phone, any, like, video games and TV for, like, a very long time, you know? Go for a hike, you know? Like, some people will be like, oh, for your dopamine detox, you can't even, like, go for, like, a hike. That's too much dopamine. And it's like, no, that's fine. You're really trying to reset a lot of stuff here. People with ADHD has less dopamine, I think. That's not true. Thought people with ADHD had issues with dopamine. They can. A lot of what the issue with people with ADHD they struggle with is just their ability to be able to, I wouldn't say that the ADHD causes dopamine issues so much as like chemically, so much as what ADHD does to a person can cause them to overexert their dopamine. People with ADHD have a hard time kind of thinking ahead and being able to, like, one, break down tasks to be able to solve bigger problems, and also do things with the future you in mind. So what'll happen is you'll actually engage in a lot more activities that will give you an instant gratification or some kind of like a dopamine hit, like right off the bat. So if you keep doing that, then eventually your dopamine reaction will be lessened. I don't know if I have ADHD, but I have a lot of symptoms, but one of them is, for me, is a random burst of energy and dopamine. Yeah, I mean, other than monetarily, nothing can hurt by getting a good evaluation from like a specialist, because there are people who like literally specialize in specifically ADHD, not just like generalized psychology or whatever, and get excited and stuck on things. Yeah, and I think that's actually the superpower of ADHD, like the ability to be able to kind of like shut everything out and hyper focus. It's why I still hate that we use the term attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because so much of what actually impairs somebody with ADHD is their ability of executive functioning. It's like, I feel like at this point it should just be an executive functioning disorder. We keep going backwards with the DSM, in my opinion, but whatever. Keep hyper focusing on the wrong stuff. I don't think you do. I think you're probably told that you do, but you need to do what's best for you. And if you think you hyper focus on the wrong stuff, then who's deciding that? Who's deciding that that stuff that you're hyper-focusing on is wrong? I think only you can decide if it's wrong or not. And maybe you have decided that it is wrong. And if that's the case, then yeah, I think that's gonna be a huge struggle for you. I think it was really cool when we had that huge fad of like fidget spinners and fidget cubes and stuff, because I think for people with ADHD, that was awesome. You know, like just have something. It's weird though, because like I don't have ADHD, so I don't really understand the need for those things, but I can understand fuck. I can understand fuck. Which can help for focusing on things that we aren't hyper-focusing on. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested in the topic of ADHD. I started studying it in psychology and then I gave up on it because it made me too sad. And I moved to autism before kind of giving up and deciding to a whole ass music. It's really helpful to be able to talk these things out and be able to have a good understanding and talk to people who, I don't know, just a good understanding of this. Insane. Like absolutely insane. I wish I could give up ADHD. No, I think your ADHD is a superpower. That's like the thing is like I always thought that people with ADHD, they're so fucking cool. I think it's so cool that they're able to be like such masters at things so easily. I wish I could trade my Asperger's with something else. What would you trade your Asperger's for? Kind of same thing though. I mean, Asperger's is kind of just another kind of like, I think a lot of people mix up like, you know, autism disorder and like savantism, which you can be autistic and not savant, but I still think that. Oh, of course you would. Can you please fall down to me? That'd be cool. Point of autism and ADHD and awareness isn't to get rid of it, but understanding those. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think that like ADHD and autism need to be cured. And I think a lot of people with it like probably feel like it's a struggle. The better, easier solution is to be cured of it. I actually think the real solution is to just not have a one-size-fits-all society. Because I think people who struggle with those two things are usually the ones left behind. Maybe not the most, but definitely one of them. Ask anybody who's done care for autistic children is like, they'll always say like, if you've met one autistic kid, you've met one autistic kid. They're all different. They all are so interesting and mind-blowing in their own ways. I think society can do a lot more of the pulling than you need to do to correct yourself for a world around you. That's where you get into stuck in those things of like, you know, somebody was saying earlier, like, I get hyper-focused on the wrong things. I'm like, who told you that it's the wrong things? I guarantee you it's somebody who would much rather you focus on something else that you don't give a shit about, which I don't think is very fair. I think it's tough when you're trying to diagnose things and you need kind of criteria to do so, but also at the same time be able to think of things as nuanced. And you can't think of autism without nuance. People who are autistic, people with ADHD, I don't think you suffer from something, because imagine a world where, and you know, I could be wrong because I am not autistic. I do not have ADHD. I just, you know, have studied this stuff and I've known a lot of children and adults with both of these things. What if society worked for you? What if like the way that you operate, like there were no things that you felt like struggling through? Would you think you still have an ailment, or would you think that you're normal? The only time that you start feeling like, oh no, something's wrong with me, is when you start doing poorly in school, which is a one-size-fits-all program. What if the world didn't require expert-level social skills? and it wasn't like competitive? What if there was room for all kinds of developmental delays? Almost like people have different brains. We expect everybody to have the same brain. Otherwise, you're wrong.